The air in the dimly lit room buzzed with tension, the dull thuds of my heartbeat echoing in my ears like a drum. Whenever the door creaked open, revealing another family member, I felt my stomach tighten with anticipation, the anxiety hanging thick in the air like a dense fog. My fingers clutched the arms of the chair I was sitting in, the wood digging into my skin, grounding me, reminding me that I was still here, still breathing. My father had loved us all, that much I knew. But that knowledge felt like a rusted lock, requiring a key that I had long since lost, maybe never possessed. I glanced around the room, noticing the familiar faces blurred with grief and confusion, all assembled to hear what my father had left us, his last testament lingering between us like a veil. As the clock ticked slowly on the wall, I couldn't help but steal glances at my sibling, who sat across from me, arms crossed, wearing a facade of impassivity that I had seen all too often. Despite the loss of our father, there was a sense of victory in their eyes, something sharp and bright that cut through the shadows gathering in my heart. I hated it. Had they always sensed that our father held them in higher regard? How cruelly ironic that they should be the chosen one, the one to receive everything, while I was left standing in the dark, empty-handed, or worse, simply invisible. Then came the moment I had dreaded and anticipated all at once. My mother, with the papers trembling in her hands, looked all of us over, a mother trying to be brave in a broken world. Her voice quivered softly as she began to read, and I focused intensely on her words. To my beloved children, she began, her voice catching as though every syllable was both a passage and a barrier, two paths diverging in a space made of grief. I leave all my worldly possessions. The first pang of horror struck me as I heard my mother's voice breaking the silence, revealing what lay between us and the weight of our father's legacy. With every word, the world felt like it was diminishing, crumbling like ashes in my palm. The room began to fade, shadows dancing along the walls of memories stirred from long forgotten corners. My heart raced as she continued. And to my beloved child, I bestow the entirety of the inheritance, amounting to the sum of $150,000. A heavy silence enveloped me, numbing my thoughts. $150,000. Just like that, I was stripped bare. No inheritance, no acknowledgement of my dedication, the hours spent caring for my father in his last days, the dreams I had sacrificed in the name of family. What had it all been for? My brother's triumphant smile was a cruel reminder of the favoritism that had followed me throughout our lives. As my mother gushed, painting my sibling as a golden child blessed with greatness, I felt like a ghost wandering in a world made entirely of my own fading echoes. With his brilliance and determination, I have no doubt he will continue the legacy of our family, my mother said, pride lacing her words. He has always made us so proud, hasn't he? My throat tightened painfully at her cascading flattery. I spat a half-hearted smile, a grimace that tasted like bile. The tears stung behind my eyes, but I blinked them away. I refused to show weakness, not in that moment. Of course, my voice cracked, trying to mask the tremor of anguish within. He's done so much. I felt my words as hollow as the sound of clattering dishes in a diner. Glancing over at my sibling, their smirk danced in subtle triumph. How could they carry that expression? How could they relish in the knowledge that they were the chosen one, while I stood here, the lowly caretaker of shattered dreams? My mother continued, buoyed by her own speech. You have always achieved so much, and now you have the opportunity to do even more. I glanced down at my hands, fingers intertwining in half-hearted resignation. You finally deserve it, deserve. The word echoed in my mind, a harsh whisper that slid cold along the back of my neck. What did it mean to deserve? My thoughts raced as hot resentment surged through me. Was I merely the backup plan, the one who would take care of everyone while my siblings shone in the limelight? Had every late-night phone call gone unanswered, every rejection letter I stuffed in that dusty drawer gone unnoticed? Thank you, Mom, my sibling replied, their voice smooth as silk, the sweet flavor of their triumph disguised in a honeyed tone. I honestly didn't expect all of this. I appreciate your faith in me. They leaned back, a casual roguishness in their demeanor that smacked of entitlement, like someone who had arrived at the final destination when they hadn't even had to take the bus. I felt my fists clench involuntarily, and I bit my lip until I tasted metal, an alertness that refused to dissipate. In that moment, I could feel the resentment swimming just below the surface, pushing through like a fierce tide. You are much more deserving of it, I said, my voice barely more than a whisper, but I knew that my mother had almost certainly caught that vicious note. Her gaze snapped towards me, eyes glistening with surprise. I could tell she wished to fence me in with her stare, to push me back to my place, back to her obedient child, the one who cares, the one who gives. My sibling turned their gaze toward me, eyebrows arched in that unmistakable show of condescension. And what have you done, exactly? They probed, tone sharp but laced with a feigned innocence. You know, taking care of the family does not entitle you to squat. A smug grin crept onto their face, triumph lighting their eyes as they basked in the moment. oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I held onto the chair, knuckles so white they could rival alabaster. How dare they stand there, flinging words thick with disdain? That's just being a good sibling. Deep breaths came and went, but they felt shallow against my swelling emotions. I have been here for you, for all of us. I sacrificed everything, I countered, the words burning against my tongue. They stung as I spoke, my voice roughened by the pain surging forward. I had dreams, ambitions, but I put them aside for family. For you? The sincerity in my voice was a fragile thread. I could taste the bitterness rising up, unwilling to fade away. My mother's eyes darted between us, her features etched with worry, her distress palpable in the air. Everyone is hurt right now, she tried to interject gently as though shielding us from our own truth. This is not the time. But how could it not be the time? I felt the waves of discontent crashing against the walls I had built right inside me. Not the time, I repeated, incredulous. Anguish seeped into my tone. When is the time? I stood by you, caring for Dad while he was sick. I held his hand when he was scared. Were those years supposed to mean nothing? I could feel the tears threatening to spill over. My heart ached for validation, for recognition. If this was my fate, each sacrifice drowned in shadows, then what had I worked towards? Amelia, please, my mother urged gently, but I could hear the tremble in her voice. Denial sparked on my tongue, an urge to lash out, to shake them awake as if they were lost in some twisted dream. I had to do everything, I pressed on, my emotions boiling like a hot kettle ready to burst. I had to grow up too fast, tending to your needs, cleaning the messes, keeping everything afloat while it was constantly forgotten. Silence fell, thick and heavy like a suffocating blanket. I could feel my siblings' eyes bore into me, surveying my vulnerability with an unsettling satisfaction. Maybe you just weren't good enough, they said smoothly, a statement designed to dig into the raw edges of my discomfort. Maybe if you had tried harder, you wouldn't be in this position. Or maybe, I shot back, my voice steady against the tide of panic rising in my chest, you were too selfish to consider how your actions affected your family. In my mind, flashes of shared memories burst like fireworks, moments of joy turned sour, love twisted into need, all of it falling around us like a cruel joke only I seemed to understand. I can't believe you're still holding on to this, my sibling said. You are trying too hard to be the martyr. I turned to my mother, who clutched the will tightly in her hands, her breath hitching slightly. Mom, I said carefully, my voice quieter, is this really what you wanted? Her gaze fell upon the sheet of paper once more, and in that instant I could see the roots of anxiety stretching like tendrils across her face, a look brimming with uncertainty as if the weight of the world was pressing down on her chest. I wanted what was best, she said finally, her voice breaking under the weight of the moment. But this is what's best for me, I finished for her, pouring my heart into those words. The heaviness of betrayal wrapped me like a cloak, enveloping me in a chill that seeped into my bones. I realized we weren't just dealing with money or things. What was stripped away was the very essence of what I thought we would share as a family: trust, visibility, connection. All of it erased in an instant, washed away like footprints in the sand. I am not invisible, I thought to myself with renewed determination. I sharpened my edges, I nurtured others while stifling my own dreams to help you both, but my worth cannot be diminished by a sum on a piece of paper. In that moment, clarity swept through me like a breath of fresh air, igniting a flame of resolve that began to flicker inside of me. A thought that maybe, just maybe, the chains that bound me to this moment could be broken. And as I looked around the room, staring into the faces of my family, the painful realization settled within me. It was time for my own story to emerge from the shadows. It was time to reclaim my life in the weeks that followed. I tried to move on, but the resentment clawed at me like an open wound. Every day I would wake up at dawn, the sun barely peeking through the drawn curtains, and I would push myself out of bed, reminding myself that life had to go on. I took a job at the local diner, a small, bustling place filled with the comforting aroma of pancakes and frying bacon. The clinking of silverware and the murmur of customers became the backdrop to my daily struggle. I poured my heart into my work, telling myself that at least I was earning some kind of living. But deep down, I was cramming my dreams, a career in art, the chance to create, to express myself, into a box that was rapidly getting smaller and smaller as the days passed. One night, after a grueling shift that felt like it lasted a year, I staggered home, exhausted and weary. My legs ached from standing for hours on end, and my clothes clung to me, a mixture of sweat and grease. I pushed open the door to our small apartment and was greeted by an unusual hush, a silence that felt heavy and invasive. The dim light cast long shadows against the walls, and the sound of the television washing through the air was absent, leaving an eerie emptiness in its wake. As I stepped inside, I noticed my mother in the living room, pacing back and forth, phone pressed tightly against her ear. Her voice, usually buoyant and filled with laughter, was now a whisper of secrets, low and conspiratorial. Curiosity gnawed at me as I tiptoed closer, my heart racing with anticipation. I could catch snippets of her conversation, words that twisted like a knife in my gut. I know it's been tough, she said softly, her voice strained but filled with something else, almost like hope. But it's for their future, you know? I have the account set up and it is really adding up. My breath hitched in my throat, anticipation bubbling to the surface. I inched closer, the hardwood floor creaking beneath me, the inherent urge to confront her battling against a more potent drive to listen. Then she spoke the numbers, and those numbers, $80,000, sent chills down my spine. I felt like I was being submerged in a freezing river, all the warmth sucked away from my body in an instant. $80,000 set aside for my siblings' education? My mind raced, drawing connections and fueling the fire of betrayal burning within me. The thought of that money, a privilege so blatantly withheld from me, twisted my insides into knots. My dreams, my art school dreams, floated right in front of me, just out of reach, taunting me. It felt like a cruel joke at my expense. I could feel my heart pounding as I tried to grasp the entirety of what I was hearing. I was drowning in a sea of deceit. My mother, the woman I had leaned on for years, was keeping secrets that felt like lead weights pulling me down. This wasn't merely about money. It was about how I had always been the neglected child, and in this moment of revelation, I realized I was far from the preferred choice. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms, grounding me against a rush of dizzying emotions. Torn between confronting her right then or plotting my next move, I opted for the latter. Mom, I called out, my voice unsteady but loud enough to break through her muffled conversation. Instantly, she jumped, startled. Her eyes widened and she hastily glanced around as if expecting to find a hidden camera. I didn't hear you come in, she said, her tone shifting, turning cool and slightly distant. I figured. It sounded like you were a little busy. I forced a lightness into my tone, but it felt more like a mask than actual emotion. Who were you talking to? Sounds like you were planning a surprise. I stepped further into the room, my skin crawling, trying to conceal the surge of rage bubbling beneath the surface. Oh, it's nothing, just a friend, she replied too quickly, her eyes darting away from mine. You know how it is, casual chit-chat? Casual chit-chat? I fought back the urge to roll my eyes. How could she nonchalantly lie to me? This isn't casual at all, is it? I pressed, my voice becoming sharper. You just mentioned an account with a lot of money. Is it true? Her expression shifted, and I could see a flicker of emotion crack her facade. Amelia, please, it's not what you think, it's just for their future. You know how hard it is to get scholarships and financial aid these days, she stammered, attempting to weave a tale that was already crumbling in front of me. So I am supposed to just sit here and watch while you set aside money for someone else? I could have used that same chance. I have dreams too, you know? I took a step closer, the weight of hopelessness fighting to escape my voice. It's not about you. She snapped suddenly, her tone harsh, and I fell back just a little, surprised by the venom behind her words. You have to understand, they need this more than you do right now, and it's not fair to put this on me. Not fair. I echoed incredulously, struggling to keep my voice steady. You put me on the back burner the moment they were born. My dreams don't matter to you at all, do they? The frustration boiled over, and for the first time I dropped the facade. I was no longer just a child seeking her mother's approval. I could feel the storm inside me rising, and with every word I spoke, I determined I would meet it head on. She opened her mouth as if she were going to offer a counter, but then she sighed, her shoulders sagging in defeat. I didn't mean it like that, she said softly, looking more weary than angry. You know I love you, it's just everything is different now. There it was again, the love, the pity, the condescension. I could barely stand it. Different how? I pressed, desperate for answers. Because I'm not the one who needs saving, the one who deserves a chance. I searched her eyes, looking for any sign that she understood my pain, but all I saw was fleeting discomfort. Amelia, No, I interrupted, my voice rising yet again, unwilling to let her sympathies envelop me anymore. This isn't about what you feel is right or wrong. This is about me feeling completely sidelined for years. I'm tired of it. As soon as the words left my lips, I could see the fear flicker across her face. I had never raised my voice like this before. I had always been the obedient daughter, the one who smiled through the pain, but it suddenly felt good to confront the truth, to claw my way out of her shadow. Listen, I continued, my heart pounding in my chest. You can deny it all you want, but I deserve the same opportunities. Those dreams I tucked away, they are still there, waiting. I will no longer accept being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home. For a moment, we stood in charged silence, the tension palpable between us. I could feel the air growing thicker, as if the walls themselves were closing in. The longer she went without responding, the more I felt the determination rise up in me like a phoenix from the ashes. Finally, she sighed loudly, looking away from me. I understand, Amelia, I do, but you have to understand my position. It isn't easy for me either, she murmured, a hint of sadness lacing her voice. I am trying to do what is best for everyone. And what about me, Mom? What's best for me? I shot back. You've made it clear who your priority is. You barely acknowledge my dreams, yet you are pouring all this money into theirs. Is that really how you see things? Her silence hung between us like a chasm, and as I watched her fidget with the phone cord, it became all too clear that she had no answers. I won't sit by any more as you decide what should happen to my life. I am taking control. You are being impulsive, she warned. You don't understand the consequences of how you are talking to me right now. And you don't understand how suffocating it is to be ignored, I shot back. This isn't just about finances, it's about years of being pushed aside. Do you know how that feels? Her eyes softened, breaking through the barriers once put up. No, I don't. I'm sorry. I want to help you, Amelia. Please just give me time. Time? I scoffed internally. Time was a luxury I could no longer afford. I need to figure this out on my own. I am done waiting for the approval or validation from you or anyone else. This is my life. With that, I turned to leave, energy pulsing through my body. The thick air heavy with resentments I could finally see clearly did not weigh down my resolve. I had to fight back. I finally felt the fire ignite within me. It was time to take what was rightfully mine. As I crossed the threshold, I could hear her whisper behind me. Amelia, please? But I did not turn. I could not turn back. The fear and pain had transformed into clarity, pushing me forward into a determined drive to reclaim my dreams. I was done drowning. I was ready to swim against the tide. I could feel the echoes of my own resilience beginning to flourish within me, and as that realization took root, I stepped into the night. Ready for whatever would come next. The night I stumbled upon my mother's hidden stash marked the breaking point. My heart raced as I stood in the dimly lit attic, the musty smell of old books and forgotten memories surrounding me. Dust motes danced in the beams of light filtering through a small window, illuminating a corner of the room where I had discovered the hidden box. The metallic latch caught my eye, gleaming like a lure, and my pulse quickened with every step I took closer to it. As I undid the latch and lifted the lid, the world around me fell away. Piles of envelopes, a stack of photographs, wedding invitations, and in the center, a neatly folded document that had my name written all over it. I can't believe this, I whispered, my breath catching as I glanced around, half expecting someone to leap out from the shadows. The contents of that box felt like a betrayal, a confirmation of all the suspicions I had harbored for years. Why had they always kept me at arm's length? It was as if I were not worthy of their love or acknowledgement, sealed away like the memories in this dusty old attic. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, a combination of anger and deep-seated hurt that had bubbled beneath the surface for too long. Why am I always the one left out? I muttered softly, tracing the edges of the aged paper with my fingertips. Each held a memory, a reminder of moments I had been excluded from, overshadowed by my sibling, who had somehow become the golden child in our family's eyes. It was suffocating. I could feel the bitterness flood my mind like a tidal wave, each memory surfacing with vivid clarity. Birthdays spent alone while they celebrated him, achievements ignored, milestones overlooked. Gone were the days I could brush off the neglect. It had transformed into something far more dangerous, a thirst for justice. As I closed the box with a finality that echoed the resolve trembling inside me, I descended the narrow attic stairs with purpose. The darkness that had enveloped my heart now seemed to ignite a flame of determination. I would confront my mother. She had to explain herself. The thought alone sent shivers of apprehension coursing through me, but there was a resolve that steadied my trembling hands. Mom, I called as I approached the kitchen, my voice carrying an edge that startled even me. She turned from the stove where she was stirring a pot of something lukewarm and uninviting, her brow furrowing in confusion. Amelia, what is it? Her tone was casual, as if nothing were wrong, and that only infuriated me more. Why am I excluded from everything? Why is my sibling the golden child and I am just invisible? The words tumbled out of my mouth, a rush of emotion spilling over. I could sense the tightening of my chest, the way my heart raced as I demanded answers. Her reaction was immediate, a slight stiffening of her posture, but she quickly put on a composed face, trying to maintain control of the situation. You need to be more responsible with your choices, Amelia. This is not how we handle things. More responsible? I echoed incredulously, the kitchen suddenly feeling stifling and close as my frustration boiled over. I have worked, sacrificed, and done everything that was asked of me, and yet, when it came to the big things, I was treated like I didn't matter at all. I felt a flutter of tears threaten to spill over, but I refused to give in. I wouldn't show her weakness, not now. Amelia, you have to understand, she began, her voice rising in defense, but I cut her off. No, you need to understand. All those years of hard work, all the sacrifices I made to help support this family while you doted on my sibling. I was always there behind the scenes, yet you never saw me. The rawness of my words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to guide you, she insisted, though her eyes slipped for just a moment, glancing at the pot on the stove as if desperately searching for an escape from this confrontation. But it doesn't feel like help, I countered sharply, my mind racing. It feels like a punishment. You've buried me under the weight of your expectations while holding my sibling up like some sort of trophy. I crossed my arms, feeling the anger pulse through my veins. You are both my children. I love you both equally, she said, her voice softer, but I could still hear the hesitation behind her words. You just need to take responsibility for your own choices. Stop deflecting, I shouted, feeling the bitter truth of her words cut through me. I felt a storm rising inside, a whirlwind of emotions that had brewed for years ready to explode. I deserve better than this. I deserve the same opportunities, the same recognition as my sibling. I've earned it, finally. She set the spoon down, hands resting on the edge of the counter, her expression shifting from confusion to frustration as she prepared to respond. Even if you feel that way, it does not change that we have different capabilities and responsibilities. Capabilities? What does that even mean? I challenged her, shaking my head. You're saying I'm not good enough, that I don't deserve the same treatment because I'm not like them? It is not about worth. She snapped, her eyes flashing with irritation. You know that, stop twisting my words. She took a deep breath, her fingers clenching against the counter, the tension in the room thickening. But every word she spoke felt like another knife to my heart, each one a reminder of what I had missed out on, of the life I could have had if only I had been given a fighting chance. The weight of her dismissive attitude was overwhelming. I see exactly what it's about, I replied, my voice dropping to a whisper, the intensity in my heart boiling just beneath the surface. You've made it clear that I am not as important to this family as my sibling is. I never said that, she exclaimed, her frustration boiling over, echoing in the empty spaces of our kitchen. Amelia, you are my daughter, I love you, but you have to recognize that life is unfair. We have to make hard choices. Hard choices? I echoed, incredulous. So excluding me from opportunities while highlighting my siblings' achievements is a choice you made? Do you realize how that feels? I'm tired of living in their shadow, tired of always being the one to pick up the pieces and scrimp for attention. Her expression hardened as she recovered her composure, brushing off my raw emotions with a wave of her hand. You are being overly dramatic. Life does not revolve around just you. At that moment, something inside me snapped. I had taken too much of this. My worth was not defined by anyone else's opinion of me, yet here I stood, pleading for acknowledgement from someone who seemed gustily oblivious to my pain. The anger inside me began to crystallize. I needed to be more than just their overlooked child. I needed a plan, a way to claim my power back. What if I decide to take matters into my own hands? I spat, the words icy on my lips. My heart thudded loudly in my chest as the thought crystallized. A plan formed like lightning striking in a storm. The storm inside me was ready, and I would not let them sail through peacefully anymore. Amelia, what do you mean by that? She asked, fear creeping into her voice. Her eyes shifted, and I could see a flicker of concern. She knew the tides were turning, and she was not in control anymore. I mean, if I am not going to be recognized for my worth, I will make sure everyone sees exactly who I am. I kept my voice steady, each word dripping with intention. This wasn't just a fight anymore, this was a declaration. You want to ignore my sacrifices? Fine, I will become the storm that reveals your truth. What truth? She challenged, but the confidence in her voice wavered. The anger surged within me, igniting my sense of purpose. I would reclaim my worth. I would expose the injustices that had kept me shackled for far too long, and nothing would stop me. Let's just say that I know a lot more than you give me credit for. As I turned away, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The air felt electric with change, and the direction of my life was shifting. I would become the storm that revealed their carefully hidden truths, and they were not prepared for what I was about to unleash. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that. I stood outside the family home, staring at the facade that once seemed so welcoming, yet now felt like a prison. The paint was peeling off the wood, exposing the graying boards beneath, much like the rotting trust that had once held my family together. I could hear arguments drifting through the windows, sharp words flaring up like firecrackers, igniting from the tension that had filled the air since the investigation. I admitted it felt delicious, relishing the discord that I had orchestrated ever since the truth came to light. Sibling rivalry had taken on a new meaning in our case, where betrayal became the unwelcome guest at the dining room table. I gently rubbed my fingers against the smooth stone of the porch railing, feeling the coolness ground me, reminding me that my path was now one of independence and strength. As I stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted, heavy with unspoken resentments and crushed dreams. You never should have done this, my sibling spat, slamming a fist against the countertop in the kitchen. Their voice was a mix of desperation and fury, echoing through the hardwood floors. I leaned against the doorframe, not making my presence known, causing them to continue their tirade. Do you know how much I've lost? You took everything from me? I took nothing, I said finally, stepping into view. The sunlight caught my reflection in the window, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of confidence. You did this to yourself. All I did was expose the truth. There was a silence that draped over the room, suffocating and electric. I met their gaze with unwavering strength. $150,000 does not just vanish, I continued. Those were gains built on lies and deceit, and now you're facing the consequences. They let out a hollow laugh that rang with madness. You think you're better than me? You think you're the one who deserves this family? You have no idea what loyalty really is. Pretending that everything was fine while you hid behind your facade is not loyalty. I shot back, feeling the anger simmer just below the surface. You think because you wrapped yourself in charm, you could fool everyone forever? Not anymore. I pulled back the curtain, and now the whole world sees you for what you really are. The truth felt like a blade in my chest, cutting deep but freeing me all at the same time. I felt the weight of my years spent playing the role of the favored sibling wash away. I had always been the backup, the one left behind in the shadows. But now here I was, basking in the consequences of their recklessness, the scales finally tilting in my favor. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, each second reminding us of the time lost, years we had squandered on false pretenses. I took a few steps closer, closing the distance between us. You should think about what you're going to do next. You can't keep running from this. Running, they repeated incredulously. I'm trying to piece together what little is left of my life. Legal battles, creditors circling, and you're standing there with a smug look on your face, thinking this is some kind of victory? This isn't just about you, I countered, trying to mask the smirk tugging at my lips. I was starting to enjoy the confrontation. This is about justice. It's about accountability. You hid the truth until I finally had the strength to uncover it. Yeah, well, congratulations, Sherlock. They barked, waving their hands dramatically. What do you get out of this? You're losing a family, Amelia. Is that worth your little game? This has been my family for years, I replied, feeling the heat of the words rising like steam. You made it toxic. You used me as a stepping stone to hide your dirty secrets. Did you think I would just sit back and let you ruin everything? You didn't care how your actions affected anyone else. You were too busy lining your pockets. I could see the shadows under their eyes were darkening, the toll of the stress draining them of their typical charm. They had once held court in this house, manipulating me with a smile or a well-timed hug. I was no longer falling for it. You see, living under your shadow while you basked in the spotlight taught me how to fight. You may have thought I was weak, but that has changed. That's your problem. You think you are better than me because you finally woke up. Not better, I corrected, pulling myself even taller and meeting their furious gaze. Wiser. I now know the kind of person you are, and I won't let it define me anymore. I am stronger than you gave me credit for. The silence that followed was thick enough to slice through with a knife. I could hear my pulse thrumming in my ears, the adrenaline fueling my words, my steady resolve. I wanted to be rid of this weight, these heavy years spent trying to fit into a mold that never belonged to me. Suddenly, the door flew open, and my parents stepped inside, their faces tight with tension. The air shifted again as they caught sight of the icy standoff unfolding. What is going on in here? My mother asked, scanning the scene, her voice shaky under pressure. Nothing, just a family reunion, I replied, a cool smile on my lips that felt foreign yet freeing. I held my siblings' gaze, letting them know that none of us were pretending anymore. Nothing worth worrying about. Is that true? My father interjected, sounding weary and strained. He could sense the unrest thick enough to drown in. We've been trying to keep this under control. Do you need to add more to the fire? No fire here, just the smoke clearing, I said, my tone light yet firm, crossing my arms. This all needed to be said. Your precious family dynamic fell apart when we built this house on lies. Truth hurts, but it is liberating, you should know that. He's struggling, my mother whispered, glancing at my sibling, who was pacing back and forth, pushing fingers through their hair, stress dripping from every gesture. We need to come together. We can fix this. We can find a way. Fix what, mother? I shot back. Fix the deceit, the favoritism? You chose sides every time you overlooked their dishonest actions. You could not see how I was pushed aside while my sibling took the spotlight. It's time you all start seeing the full picture instead of your petty grudges. My father burst out, the tension of the moment spilling over. This isn't about being petty. I stood my ground, voice steady. It's about coming to grips with the damage that has been done. I looked directly at my sibling, whose features were tight, caught between rage and anguish. I know the truth hurts. It has hurt me for far too long, too. But you do not get to play the victim when you were the architect of this downfall. Isn't that what you wanted? My sibling's voice trembled, choked with emotion. Didn't you always want to be right? No, that was never what I wanted, I confessed, feeling the lump in my throat. I just wanted to be seen just once, but you took even that from me. You always played the martyr. They yelled, the anger blending with something raw, something I didn't understand, regret maybe. You made it easy to blame everything on me. You wore that halo like it was a crown. Maybe I had to be the scapegoat so I could survive. Look, I was tired of feeling invisible while you walked through life stealing everyone's attention. I was fine living with the shadows until I realized I was stronger than you could ever imagine. It felt exhilarating to say those things out loud for the first time, what I had held in for so long. No, you were weak, hiding behind your quietness, always waiting for someone else to rescue you. They shot back defiantly, but there was an edge of uncertainty creeping into their words, as if they were desperately searching for a footing in this shifting sand. Watch it, I warned, feeling my heart thunder in my chest. You cannot play the blame game, especially with me. This is no longer just about us. The truth has taken root, now we will grow from it, even if we must clear away the dead leaves first. You cannot keep holding onto the past if you refuse to change. You think you're a hero. They scoffed, but the defiance was starting to fade. What does that make me? I don't know, I said softly, the sharpness of my words fading into something more sincere. Maybe you are just lost. I was lost for a long time, but I am finding my way and it's a beautiful feeling. Silence filled the space again, heavy but softer, as if I had opened a door that let in fresh air after a summer storm. My siblings seemed to deflate, the fight ebbing from their shoulders. What do we do now? They murmured, the realization of their truth crashing in on them like waves against the rocks. I suppose we start by acknowledging all the pain we've caused each other, I said carefully, letting it sink in. Then we work through it together. That's how families heal. But the illusion of normalcy has to break first, and the truth must come to the surface. I don't know if I can do that, they replied, voice cracking, vulnerability breaking through the facade of anger they had carefully built. What if I lose you completely? What if this destroys what's left? You already lost me when you made choices that placed your wants above our family. But I am still here. I want to heal this if you're willing to do the work. We don't have to be enemies anymore, but we must both show up differently moving forward. The door creaked open wider, revealing my parents who had been momentarily forgotten amid the tumult. The contagious warfare of silence held power, but the potential for reparation glimmered like sunlight filtering through dark clouds. I suppose I'm still trying to figure out where we all fit into this new reality. My mother finally spoke, her voice laced with gentle hope. I want to support both of you. How can we start fresh? For once in our lives, let us be honest with one another, I said, feeling the shared weight settle among us. No more lies, let's build a new foundation. And as the walls of bitterness began to wear away, the laughter that used to fill this home crept back in, timid yet determined. The shadows I had dreaded losing in the past became the markers of our journey, reminders of the ground we had stumbled upon. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter, savoring this victory, not for myself but for the chance to rebuild, brick by brick. The sweet taste of justice had transformed into something larger. It was freedom. And in that moment, I knew I was finally stepping into the light.